like to welcome everybody to this edition of the PastorCast. The PastorCast is a place where pastors and church leaders can come to hear about relevant topics to the church community. We've talked about financing, construction. We've had church numbers on here. We've had a lot of different speakers come to you, and today I'm really excited to share Will Mancini from Oksana with you. He's got a new book out called God Dreams, and we're going to just talk through this together. And I really think this time is going to be something that can really edify and build up your church and give you some good action steps to follow up with. So let me introduce Will. Will is a founder of Oksana. He's recognized as a thought leader and church vision consultant. He's written Church Unique and Innovating Discipleship. And now his new book is God Dreams right here. And so we're going to chat through this today. Will served on staff at Clear Creek Community Church, now a member there. And Will, I'll say just to welcome you, love Clear Creek, love everything they've done. The Houston Church Planting Network that came out of there, really do love that church. And so I know you guys have done a lot of great things, and I know you really enjoy it down there in Houston.
Yeah, thanks, John. It's great to be with you today.
Well, good. Well, let's jump right into this. So, Will, what was the goal when you sat down to write God Dreams? Talk us through what you were thinking there.
Yeah, well, there's definitely a journey I've been on for the last 15 years working with leaders. And I think the primary goal was, I think of really three things, John. I see that there's a lot of busyness. There's a lot of just craziness. We say, ministry without clarity is insanity. And I think that there's just a busyness that washes through the church in general. Mm-hmm. And one of the deepest kind of personal reasons as I work with pastors is I wanted to have help them get a sense of freedom and confidence in their calling as a church and even their calling personally. So there's a sense of freedom that I want to give to pastors, more closely associated with just the idea of vision. The two primary benefits I wanted church leaders to get was really a practical ability to inspire people in new ways, just to the life of following Jesus and inspiring them to what a church might be able to do in a city, in a community, over the course of 5, 10, 15 years. And then actually it was funny when I was testing some of the subtitles and just talking to, I sent an email out to about 10,000 church leaders just saying, hey, you know what do you think the most important need is when it comes to vision? And the clear winner of that, when we talked about benefits, they said, we really want the ability to focus the limited energy and time and money that God has given us. And so freedom and that confidence personally, number one. Number two, that skill to inspire people. Mm-hmm. And then three, the ability to take your limited resources of the church and focus them, on the few best things that God's given your church to do. And I think people really appreciate that. When I think of focus, John, I think of being in fourth grade, I learned that you could take a magnifying glass and take this warm sunlight and take it, it's only a couple square inches worth of sunlight, but if you focus that on a pinpoint size, you can start a fire, that power of focus. And so it's not just focusing resources for the sake of focusing resources. It's the opportunity to focus resources to get dramatic impact, to go from, kind of warm comfortability to starting a fire, if you will, when it comes to the impact of the church.
Will, that's great. God has gifted you, and I think people that are listening to this or watching this right now can tell that you have you just got a special gift of helping churches through the topic of vision. You're just better than anyone I've come across. So it's a real testament to what you guys do there at Oksana. Talk to us about, you talked about vision as a human thing, and that humans are built with a capacity for vision. Talk through that with us a little bit.
Yeah, well, I start God Dreams. I wanted to start God Dreams with that, John, because it's very interesting. Vision, no one would argue with the fact that vision is this critical competency, that there's a lot in a leader's life that comes from it. Yet, immediately when you start having a conversation about it, there's so many definitions. It's as if we don't argue that vision's important, but as soon as we get into a meaningful conversation about it, it gets real fuzzy, So really, it's dramatic irony. And so what I wanted to do to help leaders restart the conversation, we've been talking about vision for 3 decades. We've had books in the 80s, and corporate stuff, and people can immediately have some negative connotations, or they think of a long, drawn-out strategic planning process they did 15 years ago that didn't yield any fruit. or we just have different ways of defining visionary. The first thing I want to do is just restart the conversation and say, and when they say vision's a human thing, what we're saying is the vision is so fundamental to being a human being. And I would say this: if you can have a conversation with another human being and talk about what you're looking forward to, you're a visionary. It's that simple. And so in that sense, probably everyone listening to us, by that definition of visionary, is being a visionary every day. We look forward to things as human beings. We can't even define big biblical ideas like faith and hope without this idea of using our imagination, dreaming, hoping for a better future. Just in the definition of that, I use the biblical idea of hope. And so it really is just human beings look forward to things. That's just inherent to who we are as people, the way God made us. And it's a testimony to our God-likeness, to our imaginative abilities, that we can picture a place in the future, a place in time that we've not arrived yet. And all we're saying is, you know what, if that's such just a basic feature to being a human being, shouldn't we be on? Shouldn't we attend to this skill and this discipline, this opportunity as church leaders to help the family of God that you're stewarding as a pastor look forward to something as the family of God in your church, in your community, that kind of thing. So we're just trying to help make the conversation very accessible and very natural to say it's a no-brainer to put time and energy into getting vision right.
Yeah, you even talked about how people in your church long for that vision. They want to see the direction in your church. They want to see that, and I think that's really true. I think sometimes we get caught up in our church staff and our mission statement, and maybe we have a mission statement, but we don't have what you call breakthrough clarity. Talk a little bit about the difference between vision and a mission statement that leads to breakthrough clarity, as opposed to just generic vision. That's something you just printed in your bulletin.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I could say on that. I would start first two ideas that I think of when you mention breakthrough. One very simple one is vision transfers through people, not paper. So what we're after is I think every leader knows we don't just need more vision statements or mission statements. I'd say the church doesn't need a vision statement. It needs a visionary state of mind. And the ability to have enough dialogue to get your leadership core on the same page, obviously your staff, elders, deacons, your board, however your church is governed, and then to start that cascading mindset from staff to key lay leaders to all the disciples, members, attenders of your church. So we want to install. Breakthrough means to us installing that in the mind and heart of the people. The problem is with generic really means nothing to people. Well, we're so bombarded with messages. If I just say to give an illustration, John, if I'm trying to get a bunch of investors excited about a new restaurant concept, and I say to those investors, look, we've got the most stunning business model and plan for a great restaurant. It's going to be a new restaurant in the city. We think we can franchise it. It's going to be the best thing, guys, here's the vision. We are going to serve food. That would be underwhelming. You're not really informing me about anything unique to that restaurant versus every other restaurant in the country. And so here's what we do in church. We use generic statements. This requires a little bit of thoughtfulness. I don't want to be written off when I say this. So, a little bit of reflection on the statement. In our efforts to be biblical, we fail to be imaginative. So what we do is we substitute quick, general statements about what every church is called to do. And we try to, and we use those as, quote, vision statements, but it doesn't install a meaningful, specific, and vivid visionary state of mind for what God is doing in our time, in our place, in our city, in the next few years. And so that's that. As you know from the book, we talk about the 9 forms of generic vision. My vision can't just be making disciples or glorifying God or loving God, loving people, or quote, reaching more. All those are things that we want to do, but they don't meaningfully engage the mind and heart for what God is doing in our time and our place.
Yeah, that is, I'll tell you, that's something that really stretched me in this book, of thinking through that, getting rid of just thinking about a generic mission statement. Working with churches at Service Realty, I've always talked with people about mission and vision, but not to the level that you really helped grow me as I'm working with a team. I've sat with teams who said, hey guys, what are you trying to accomplish? Who are you trying to reach? Walking through those things and even asking them, what's your mission statement? What's your existence? And churches not having any clue, saying, we don't know what we do.
Yeah.
And so I think it puts some new tools in my box to help lead people, but really recommending that people read a book like this, like God Dreams, get with your team, because I think we need this prodding that you've provided here in this book.
I want to commend you, John, and say I love the way you've engaged the content, and I know the value you want to bring and the value you do bring to church leaders. It's just so cool to think that with the portfolio of options you can offer churches and all the diverse ways that churches can utilize space out there. I mean, it really does open up a great conversation to get creative and thoughtful about the future, and the way that you guys can serve as a result of that clarity is really tremendous, because I know there's all kinds of options that you can bring to the table for churches depending on their vision.
Sure. I think when Todd McMission from Oksana was on our PastorCast last month, or actually this month, and one of the things he was talking about clarity is clarity guides you to say no to certain things and know why you said no, and know why you're saying yes to certain things. And I think when it comes to facilities and real estate transactions, and in my world, you have to know why you're doing that transaction. You have to really be able to justify that this is why we're doing this. And my contention is that for some churches, a real estate transaction or a building may not be the right thing. It may be right to say no to that based on the clarity you have, and we're going to go through this, the vision you have. So it's really been good. I'm going to let you talk here in a second about the drawing you kind of have behind your head. One of my favorite quotes in the book, you encourage leaders to think long. And it says, it has been said that humans tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in 1 year and underestimate what we can accomplish in 5. So in God Dreams, you encourage people to think long, think beyond just today or the next 90 days or the next building project or at the end of the year, this year's budget. Thinking long and then coming back to what you do. So talk to us. Can you expand on that? I hope I didn't ramble on too much for you.
That's great. It's great. Well, if you were to look at the writing on vision in the last 3-4 decades, what happened was we really trafficked a lot in thinking long in the 60s, 70s, 80s. Even many pastors, many listeners may resonate or remember the idea that Jim Collins wrote about called the B-hack, the big, hairy, audacious goal. And that was encouraging you to think 15, 20, 25 years. That was language coming out us in kind of the 80s, early 90s. So what happened was in the last 15 years, all of our attention in writing from the business, I'd say 99% of it has been on short-term execution. Of course, we've seen the invention of the internet, the propagation of just social media, this acceleration of pace and change culturally. And so, when a company like Nokia does long-range planning, it's 90 days is long range because things are changing so much. So what happens is, in general, we've begun to drift away from the idea that long is even important. And when I wrote Church Unique in 2008, I was really emphasizing that sense of, guys, we really gotta know clearly what we're doing this next year. Let's focus on those short-term pieces. It was really since I wrote Church Unique that I began to appreciate the idea of thinking long, particularly for believers. And if you think about one interesting perspective, we're really in the farming business, kind of agricultural metaphor in the church. I mean, in the work of transformed lives, we know you can't microwave transformation. So you might be able to, you might need to be able to respond if we're a cell phone manufacturer to a new, upgraded, technology in the industry next month. But we do know that the process of life change is more agricultural. It takes time. And while we have to be very adaptive today to changes, we still can, I believe. So I wanted to redeem the idea of thinking long as the people of God, because there's so many benefits to it. So the first thing I want to do is say, let's not stop this long trajectory mindset as the people of God, as spiritual leaders. And so that, there's so many reasons for that. I think the one that's most meaningful to me as I wrote the book, John, is couple things I've observed, the last 15 years working with churches. First of all, most pastors spend more time in 1 month in sermon prep than they do in 5 years on vision prep or articulation, which is just a huge missed opportunity, right, from my vantage point. The second thing is I think of the ministry treadmill of Sundays coming. We are putting 90+% of all energies in a given week into just what's going to expire at the end of a week, that programmatic expression of worship on Sunday, which is valuable. But what's unbelievable is how much time we're taking just on a 1-week horizon. So that almost the only time we think beyond a sermon series or Sundays coming next week is for an annual budgeting process, right? Or maybe land acquisition and realty. We think we start peering out there. And so I wanted to suggest to leaders, let's start normalizing again the opportunity to think in terms of a generational time span. And we can do more than master plan our building footprint. We can master plan our gospel-centered disciple-making impact, in a city. And so those are just some of the ideas. They're just trying to stretch our thinking to think longer again and show why this is why this is important. What's really interesting, if you study great achievements and really great leaders today, you will find that underneath the whitewater of everyone talking about short-range execution, you will find really great leaders that have maintained a commitment to thinking long. And I share one illustration is Jeff Bezos at Amazon. Every year to his stockholders, this is these guys within 10, 15 years, he became one of the top 50, companies in the world. Every year to his stockholders, he reprints his original letter as they did their IPO. He said, this company will always have a commitment to thinking long. We will never fall prey to the quarterly, returns only. Of course, we're going to attend to quarterly profits, but we're going to look at it and take the long haul. And if you study what he's working on and how they built their business, thinking long has been a very, very key ingredient to what they've done. And you could look at a lot of business leaders, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, others who've had that long-term horizon. I think we must grab that, John, at a local church level. And I think the benefits are just incredible when we see that again. I know I'm saying a lot of the one. I list 12 benefits in the book, as you know, in one chapter, 12 benefits of thinking long. My favorite benefit of all of those is when you think of last year, let me state a problem, then I'll state the opportunity with thinking long. Last year, the number one blog post on my blog was the most important trend of 2015, which is our most committed people are attending church less frequently.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of reasons for that, but one of the reasons I believe is we've missed the value proposition as organized disciple makers, as a family of God in a local community or city. We lost the value proposition of this. We go to Scripture every week. We teach people from what is thousands of years of revealed history, God's epic, redemptive, restorative movement. And we basically are constantly inviting people and challenging people to say, hey, God wants you to join and be a part of this. Okay. So we've got this that crazy 30,000 foot view, the sweeping arc of biblical history and the biblical narrative. And we've got that on the one hand, we preach that, but organizationally, we're stuck on this treadmill of next Sunday. And it's as if we think that just, hey, coming to church Sunday after Sunday and going to a small group or maybe, serving the community a little bit, we just think that being a part of this programmatic treadmill is is inviting people into a drama or a stage of life change. It really is not as much as we think, John. And what I think of your long-range vision, a 5, 10, 15-year dream. It's as if it's training wheels or an on-ramp to God's epic narrative of what he's doing in our lifetime through us in our city that most churches don't have. There's no access, if you will, to really feeling like my life can make a difference in this epic narrative. But when a church shows off, this is what we can do together over the next decade. You live in Dallas, I live in Houston. In our city, in our area of the city, this is what we can do. It brings a whole new value proposition to the disciple.
That is excellent. We could sit here and talk about this for a couple of hours a day, and I'm sure everybody would enjoy it. But really excellent. Let's talk about, you shared the top 10 challenges to vision and planning in the church, and we don't have time to go through that whole list. People got to buy the book in order to go through all 10 of them. But talk about meaningless vision statements and setting too many goals. Because I think that's, again, you talked about just looking at every Sunday, but I think also just the things that we put that probably put the lid on the box. You know, if you don't have a meaningless statement, or if you're doing too many things, there's a lid on the box that can be taken off. So chat with us about that.
Well, the problem with generic is it just leaves us wide open to set too many goals. We don't have a kind of a focused lens to begin to prioritize what we're doing. Henry Ford said a long time ago that the problem with people is we try to do too much. So that's coming from, not from a busy guy in 2016, but someone 100 years ago. Mm-hmm. Peter Drucker said that the greatest problem in nonprofits is a lack of focus. So we've got great thinkers just commentating on this problem. All the best organizational thinkers have created their own language for how to stop doing things. Jim Collins says, let's do a stop doing list. We talk about systematic abandonment. We talk about the essential few and the trivial many, and everyone talks about it. Jesus trafficked in this idea when he sent his 12 disciples. In Luke 9, verse 1, there's 7 negatives in there. He's saying what not to do just as much as he's saying what to do. Even at the end is, the high priestly prayer in John 17. There's all kinds of unmet needs in the wake of Jesus' ministry. Not everyone got healed. Not everyone had enough time with Jesus, if you will. And yet he says to the Father, I've accomplished everything you've called me to do. So those are just some backdrops to this idea that most of the time when I look, if the church is trying to be intentional, most of the time they try to do too much. If you have more than 5 goals, you might as well not have any. You just fragment and splinter the efforts of the organization. So obviously those are a lot of the planning obstacles we talk about, and one of the key solutions to that is brought in the book. We're gonna have one big goal at a time at any given time in the church to bring a total kind of simplicity and focus to the people. And in and around those goals, we might have some sub-goals, but we're always focusing on at least one big goal at a time as a solution to the problem.
So let's talk about, let me let you kind of walk people through what you got drawn there on your backdrop. And then maybe you can incorporate a little bit of, you walk your readers through 12 vision templates to prepare people to create their horizon storyline. So share with us a little bit about that. Let me get out of the way and share that with us.
Well, thanks, John. I appreciate that. These represent kind of really my life's work on behalf of pastors and church leaders. So as a pastor myself, with a background in kind of engineering and a background in marketing, those disciplines meet to say, how do we really get vision right? And the first book I wrote in 2008 is Church Unique. And we talk about building the 4 sides of your vision frame. And I would encourage pastors to see that as defining your disciple-making mission and model really well. So this is what we do, why we do it, how we do it, what's our pathway for making disciples, when are we successful, what do disciples look like in our church? And so we build that out. And in 2008, I said, basically, we set this framework, and vision is the opportunity to look through our basic disciple-making mission and model to look at a picture of the future. And in 2008, I really just emphasized a few things about that picture, how to get people excited about a picture of the future, how to think qualitatively and quantitatively. And, I was just sharing some general principles on that. So what I do really in God Dreams is really about these 2 steps, and going from a picture in general to the idea of this is the horizon storyline. So the horizon storyline is a 1-page visionary plan that brings the right amount of vision content to the right amount of time in the future for the entire leadership team. Let me say it again. What we're trying to do is bring the right amount of vision content to the right amount of time in the future to the entire leadership team. And what's important when we say the entire leadership team, when I get to the build out of this complete horizon storyline, that's not something I'm using to vision cast from. That's more of a leadership tool. But I can quickly inspire and paint a picture once I build out that tool that's very inspirational, and that enables me to focus resources. So I offer this as an image that folks would see in the beginning of the book. And we spend most of the book walking through these 4 horizons very quickly. What we do, if you were to look at a picture, I know this is small on the screen, John, if you were to imagine a picture of the mountains. Mm-hmm. They're actually, it's when our eyes are open, or anytime we're looking at anything in 3 dimensions as a human being, there are really 3 horizons. The technical term for your eye's ability to focus in and out of these 3 horizons is called accommodation. And literally in milliseconds, our eyes can go from an infinite zoom, if we're looking at the sky or an airplane flying, to 8 centimeters in front of my face. My eyes can zoom in. We get this fantastic zoom lens in our brains and our eyes that God created. What we're saying when you look at a picture, imagine a mountain scene, there are 4 horizons. There's what I see right in front of me, the trees. In this case, we have a road sign as I'm driving. There's the main subject in my field of vision, or in that portrait or that picture. There's a deer, there's trees, there's a lake, there's a river. There's usually a background. So there's a mountain background, there's the sky background, and then there's a 4th horizon that we have fun with. We say there's just what's beyond the horizon. There's what I can't see, but I begin to imagine, if I were to go over that mountain, what's going to be there. And we take those 4 horizons. I could almost just draw these horizons over a picture, and we translate them here to a whiteboard drawing. What's very important about this is a napkin sketch or a whiteboard drawing, where we say we ought to think, this is what we do. The top of this is our long range. So you have 1 big idea and 4 supporting ideas, long range. The bottom of this is our short range, and we have 1 idea and 4 supporting ideas, short range. And this is the tool we call the horizon storyline. Now, there's a lot I could say about this, John. Just by way of introduction, what we're actually saying is, first and foremost, I can have an extremely robust visionary plan for my church with no more than 10 ideas. And 1 most important idea this year. So I'm going to bring it down to, if I'm going to vision cast, I'm going to share maybe a 5 or 10 year dream, long term. And here's our most important next step this year as a church. Stunning simplicity, powerful laser-focused clarity. Now, I've got a few supporting ideas for that. If you wanted to get into the organizational, build out of that a little bit, you're going to have some substance that you can build out from there. So we call it a storyline, because I can actually tell a story with these, this 10 or less ideas. I can say our climactic scene, our dream 10 years from now is to see this happen. And we're going to overcome these 4 things in order to get there. This year, our inciting incident, the one thing we must do to accomplish that, is very clear. Here's our goal for the next year. And in the next weeks and months, here are the 4 most important things we need to do that. And you can actually, no idea is divorced from a sequencing of what's most important this next week, this next month, and what are we dreaming about and praying for, in the next decade. So that's it in a nutshell. Here's why this is powerful. It uses how our minds think, how our eyes literally see, help us understand the importance of time horizons, and help everyone get it. Just kind of makes it stick. And it uses the familiar tool of story to make the visionary plan very shareable. And this last thing I'll say, John, I think every staff, as you know, and let's think of a typical business administrator or executive pastor and the senior pastor or lead pastor who likes to preach. I walk into teams all the time. Some people are out here thinking 30,000 foot, thinking creative and intuitive all day long. And then some folks are here just saying, hey, what are the nuts and bolts? What are we doing next week? And what I love about this more than anything else is it really fuses those thinking wavelengths on a team. It fuses the dreamers and the achievers, if you will, the execution and the statistician are both kind of glued to the same visionary plan. So a lot I've said about that, but that's a little quick overview of Church Unique. This is the God Dreams difference and how God Dreams built on my prior work of Church Unique.
That's really great. I'll tell you the 12 vision templates, which we're not going to go through all those right now, but I'll tell you for me, as I read it, I was sitting there going, man, I want to draw my horizon storyline. I'm not a pastor, but I wanted to do that, and really targeted transformation and geographic saturation were things that are really on my heart as I read that. I know you've got a special section in this book. It's unlike any other. I don't know if people can see here on the video. You've got black pages in the middle of this book. This is very unique, but you did this so that a whole leadership team, lay leaders and staff could be involved. Share with us about the blank pages and maybe a little bit about vision templates.
Let me just clarify. I'll highlight this top. So a bulk of the book is given to this longer range horizon we talked about. So I want to highlight this. The 12 templates are about that section. So what happens here? I want to put the word 12 templates here.
Yep.
What happens what I've noticed over the years, and I've logged over 10,000 hours of starting with the blank page. So I was the one saying, hey, let's not photocopy what other churches are doing. Let's look and dream together about what God is doing. And I
love that
pride of starting with a blank page. Well, over the years, what happened was when we got to thinking long, really far out there, I realized that there are certain patterns. And I would end up calling those patterns templates. You can go to Scripture. You can look at historical examples. In any team I'm facilitating, I see the team quickly gravitate to these different templates. I use the word template because ultimately vision is a picture, and it's going to be very colorful and beautiful. But every good painter, really starts off with some kind of big idea or template idea. So what I did, John, is when it comes to thinking long, it's so far away that I can get some vapor lock or just kind of stuck in my imagination because it's just so far out to really dream. So the 12 templates dramatically accelerate a team's conversation and dialogue and make that far distant future more concrete, because we're just sweeping through God's word and biblical history and recent history to say, hey, here are the options. Basically, if you're to do a panoramic view of every dream a leadership team ever had, we have 4 basic types, and there's 3 categories in each type, which makes 12 types. So as you acknowledge, those pages are 4 chapters. Mm-hmm. I think of it as a tour guide. I'm basically saying, I just want to walk you through how God's people have dreamed over time. Scriptural references, I think we have over 70 stories of churches that are referenced in the book. So we're just going, boom, here's 4 quick, easy read chapters. I think they're fun to read, inspirational read. And that part of the book, as you've already said it perfectly. Let's say a pastor has 2 or 3 on their core team, but they have deacons and elders, and there's 20 or 25 leaders. We say, hey, have them read just those 4 chapters, and there's a place they can vote and give their input back to the pastor for a smaller leadership team's kind of collaborative work and input. So we just wanted to create a tool that helps more people give input to a pastor or a leadership team.
Well, that's really, it's such a imaginative tool. I think the way you did that, so that people, unfortunately people read less and less nowadays. Our attention spans are shrinking. And so I think being able to put that in people's hands was just a really smart thing to do. I didn't mention this at the beginning, but your co-author, Warren Bird, I know he poured a lot into this with you as well, bringing probably a lot of those stories and the research that he does so well. So I just wanted
glad you mentioned. I'm so grateful for Warren Bird. He's a stellar individual, and I wanted his mind as someone who's authored, I think, close to 30 books, if not more, just to be able to validate those templates. And he was a great help to me in that process.
Yeah, he's been on the PastorCast before and a couple of other books that he's been a part of. And so, the information you've shared today is just solid. And I know people can connect with you, pastors, church leaders that watch this can connect with you on your blog, willmancini.com. I know you're on Twitter, you're at Will Mancini, and Oxano is oxano.com, correct?
That's correct.
Got all that. So what I really want to encourage people today here as we wrap up, and I'm going to let you say one final thing, just tie a bow on this, but I just want people to know that there's a lot of great resources, and your team can really help a church, whether they're a church plant or they're a church that's been here 50, 70 years. It's never the wrong time to go through this process. And so before I close it up and give all the obligatory things I got to do for the PastorCast, just share a closing thought.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you sharing the personal blog and our Oxana team blog. I do want listeners to know that they can get some free resources just on God dreams from don't miss it's a short code. So it's a God Dreams with a .ms. So don't go to goddreams.com and don't see that as a typo. God Dreams with a .ms. It's all you need. And John, we've actually created a lot of free tools there. So you can see examples of the Horizon storyline. You get a Horizon storyline template. Most book websites are created to do one thing. That's to inspire you and persuade you to buy the book. Really, the God Dreams website is a resource portal for different things that you can do. Executive pastors can be certified to run the God Dreams toolbox. You can learn more there about a 2-day God Dreams retreat that we can do for your church, where we build out the Horizon storyline in a 2-day retreat. It's a fantastic experience that we can do. And yes, as you said, we'd love, and our primary work is to walk churches through the vision framing and this all in one 6, 9, or 12-month process. So we certainly love to talk about that. I think the end idea I want to share with pastors is, if there is a deeper knowability of what God is calling your church to do, if there's a more vivid picture of that, I want to say to the pastors, I don't think there's anything more valuable that you can have in your life than a clearer picture. Would you be able to say right now, standing before Jesus at the gates of heaven, I've accomplished everything you called me to do? And if we're trafficking in the generic, we're missing this amazing opportunity to feel more free, to feel more confident, I believe, to make dramatically more progress in our lifetime. So there are a lot of great tools and access points, and I would just say the clarity is more knowable than you might recognize. With a little bit of time, a little bit of the right tools, a little bit of outside coaching, you'll be blown away at the kind of new progress you can make, and the new feeling of freedom that you can have as a pastor.
Well, Will, thank you for that. I know those who are watching this are going to want to share this with other pastors they know, because this is time well spent with you today. I just really appreciate you sharing that with us. I will say, I did not say this at the beginning, the PastorCast is sponsored and brought to you by Service Realty. Service Realty is located in Plano, Texas, and Service Realty is a church real estate professional serving churches as they acquire properties, dispose of properties, plan and prepare to ask the questions around their facility. And so a church understanding their clarity is key before we walk somebody through any real estate transaction. And so the PastorCast is one of our tools to help equip the church in all areas as they pursue projects. So the PastorCast.com is where you can view past PastorCasts. But Will, I know today's is going to be just endorsed, really consumed by a lot of people, because you shared a lot of great information. So I want to thank you for that. And with that, we will talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
John, thanks so much for having me, and appreciate your heart to serve churches. It's just great to be with you today.
All right. Thanks, Will. We will see you all next time.